Joining us again from Detroit from the NFL draft, which is set to take place tomorrow. Fox 5's Miles Garrett. How you doing, Miles?
Doing well, fellas. How you doing? Yeah, how are you guys doing? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, excited. I feel like we've been dealing with mock draft season for about 2 months, and I think we're really starting to see things really just get thrown out the window here over the last 8 hours. I've heard Peter Schrager say that there's going to be 10 trades in the first round, which is maybe there is. Sounds like absolute nonsense. I've heard. It just seems like there's so much. We've heard Michael Penix. Now, first of all, talk me off the ledge of this Michael Penix thing. There's no way that the Falcons go quarterback with the 8th overall pick after just signing Kirk Cousins, right? Like there's no I'm not stupid in thinking that there's no way that happens.
I don't see it happening. I really don't. The only scenario where I see a quarterback going at 8 to the Falcons is if Drake May or one of those guys somehow ends up falling right into your lap. I don't see a scenario in which Michael Penix Jr. is the guy the Falcons take at pick number 8. Now, if he's lingering there at the end of the first round, do the Falcons want to trade up and maybe grab him? I could maybe see that as being a possibility. But as far as pick number 8, I don't see it whatsoever.
Yeah, it feels like a lot more smoke than fire,
Yeah.
whether it's coming from his agent, maybe it's coming from the Falcons. Maybe they want to, maybe trade back a little bit. We've seen tons of that. I actually did something, I don't remember who reported it, that a lot of teams want tackles. And if you go look at the draft order and then look at the roster needs, there's like more than half of a dozen teams behind the Falcons that are in need of a tackle. And if Joe Alt or Fashanu falls to them, they can potentially auction off that pick. Or Roma Dunze. I think, I feel safe in saying Malik Neighbors probably isn't going to fall. Talk to us a little bit about that. Terry Fontenot hasn't traded back, but you were at the pre-draft press conference, and he kind of spoke to that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I actually asked him kind of, what the deal has been really, these next couple days dating back to really yesterday. And it's nonstop phone calls. And, he talks about, it's nothing set in stone, but those conversations are basically being had right up until the 8th pick. Whether it's talking to teams below them, talking to teams in front of them. I saw a report today that said, maybe it was Peter Schrager talking about how the Falcons are a team that may be trading up, so it's kind of all over the place, and who really knows what is, truthful or what is just, trying to see what's available, what it would cost to move up to a certain area. That's kind of what Terry Fontenot implied yesterday. But at the same time, based on what I've heard from the people who are kind of serious in regards to Falcons, inner circles per se, it seems like trading down is their more favorable option. Now, whether they do that, I don't know. They find the right partner. Again, we're seeing all the different rumors on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, as far as teams trying to trade up in that 6 to sort of, 11 range. And there's a lot of different possibilities right now for the Falcons. Do you go edge rusher? Do you go cornerback? Do you take another pass catcher? Do you draft a quarterback who's there? Right now, it seems like edge rusher and cornerback are sort of the relative consensus for what the Falcons are going to do with their first pick. I think it just depends on, do they stay put at 8 or are they picking at, say, pick number 12? Because I think it definitely impacts, your position and who's still on the board there at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we had Zeno on earlier in the week. He's one of the few people that actually brought up the possibility of trading up. I mean, he mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you can throw Malik Neighbors in there too, because I think both of them are going to be gone. But yeah, if you wanted to go all in on offense and you had one of those guys, whether it be Marvin Harrison or whether it be Malik Neighbors, or maybe it's both of them and one of them's more attainable, I don't think trading up's the most ridiculous thing. I don't know what else you would trade up for because, like we said, I don't really see a quarterback unless Drake May falls. And even then, I still don't really see it after you sign Kirk Cousins. I don't see the left tackles really intriguing the Falcons because as much as we say best player available, it only makes so much sense to a certain degree. Like, you have 2 starting left tackles. Like,
I think, Miles, that, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in the building at Flowery Branch at Tuesday's pre-draft press conference. I was watching it on YouTube, but Terry Fontenot, he reiterated it's still best player available, but he was kind of, I don't know, like hedging almost, where it was like best player available for us, for our criteria, for our needs. We have these prospects. He kind of referenced, I think, buckets or tiers or something, where he said, we have all these guys in buckets or tiers, and they're either superstars, starters, and below starters, whatever. And then he goes, if there's two guys there and then they're in the same tier / bucket, we'll have you. We're going to go with roster need. It feels like he's kind of backing off that maybe Arthur Smith approach where we're just going to take the best guy. It doesn't matter the position. We still need to address the defense. I mean, there's glaring holes on the defense. Let's not kid ourselves. I know he said we could go play a game tomorrow with this roster. What else is he going to say? But I feel like he's maybe hedging a little bit on best player available, so to speak.
Yeah, and I do think, again, you have to maybe not take everything at face value, because at the end of the day, they do have sort of a political element when they're speaking to us when it comes to that, not giving anything away. Zeno himself even kind of pushed Terry on a couple questions, trying to kind of ask about quarterbacks or ask about receivers and that type of thing. And Terry obviously gave kind of, we're not giving anything away type answers. So that's one aspect of that. Now, the second aspect of it is, yes, if you're going to talk about where this team has any glaring holes, it's all on the defensive front. I'd say your needs offensively are maybe 4 or 5, whether that's a receiver or a number 2 receiver, let's call it that, and maybe another offensive lineman. As far as your priority, it's edge rusher and cornerback. I think that's very obvious and very glaring as far as what this team's needs are. It's just the question of right now of just the unknown, really, because the draft could go so many different ways. And at pick number 8, you really don't have a lot of control about what you can do and who you're going to pick at that point, because, say 4 quarterbacks do go in the top 5, then at least that's what is being said among most experts on Twitter. Schefter, all those types of guys are saying that, maybe Minnesota trades up and those quarterbacks are completely off the board at that point. That kind of gives you sort of an idea of what you're going to be working with, because then you figure Marvin Harrison's going to be off the board, Joe Halt's going to be off the board, and probably Malik Neighbors is off the board. Where does that leave you at that point? That leaves you Roma Dunze, Dallas Turner, Leatu Latu, those types of guys that you're kind of picking from. Now, if a quarterback or 3 quarterbacks, let's say, go in the top 5 and one of them starts falling, then I think it becomes a lot more interesting, because you get those 3 quarterbacks that go. Maybe Arizona stays put. They draft Marvin Harrison Jr. You get the Chargers, like say they take, I don't know, Joe Alt or Brock Bowers, or, they kind of throw a wrench in everything right there. Then I think the trade-up scenario becomes even more interesting, because now suddenly J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, one of those guys is falling, and all these quarterback-hungry teams like the Vikings, the Raiders are going to try to be aggressive and trade up and get their guy. It could be prime position at pick number 8 for the Falcons to maybe get a late first or early second round guy. So all these arguments, and it's really what Terry said yesterday. It really is going to come down to the wire when they're officially on the clock and how the board shapes up. So really wish that there would be a better answer to that question. But the truth of the matter is, we, and frankly, I don't even think Terry really truly knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I've kind of been hinting at, is like no one knows what's going to happen, not even Terry Fontenot himself, because the way things shakes up, what offers he could get from behind him, depending on how the board shakes up. Maybe that one of the prospects they didn't expect was going to fall. Maybe it is Malik Neighbors. Maybe if that guy falls, they're like, yeah, no matter what, we're going to take that guy. We just have him in that blue chip, kind of where they had Kyle Pitts. It was like, we're taking that guy there. If he somehow falls to us, maybe that happens with one of those prospects. Maybe it's even a tackle. Who the hell knows?
Well, he did reference, obviously, like you said, you can't take anything for face value or dig into it too much conspiracy stuff. But I think what he mentioned, it sunk in with me where he said, tomorrow's needs could be today or something like that. And I think, what does every single, other than quarterback, what does every single team in the NFL need? The offensive tackles, every single team. And I know we got Jake Matthews, we got Caleb McGarry. A lot of people don't like Caleb McGarry, but let me tell you, those guys just don't know ball. I don't know. He's more than adequate. And Roscoe agrees, more than adequate right tackle for us. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that a guy like Joe Alt, if he falls, if he gets past the Chargers and then gets past the Titans, I don't think that's an impossibility, because like he said, tomorrow's problems could be addressed today and vice versa. So I think, that is something that should be seriously considered, though I do think it's down the totem pole in terms of possibilities. I do think it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe Alt, I think, is a guy that, because again, I mean, you talk about Caleb McGarry, there is an argument about, can you trust him going forward? Especially, I think the main question with Caleb McGarry is the pass protection aspect. You know how good he is run blocking, and that was sort of Arthur Smith's scheme, and I think is why it was a big part of why McGarry was so successful and kind of had a resurgence of sorts under Arthur Smith. I think that's the question. What's the future of Jake Matthews? He's not getting any younger. So, as you said, I mean, tomorrow's problem could become today very quickly should one of those guys get injured. Luckily, Matthew Bergeron kind of steps in and plugs and plays very quickly. But Joe Alt, if he's available at pick number 8, could be a very, very intriguing prospect because you look at all the best teams. They're always good up front. It's something that, you look back even to the heyday of the Falcons, if you want to call it that. They didn't really have a lot of those trench guys when they had the Julio Joneses of the world, the Matt Ryans of the world, all these skill position players. Doesn't really matter if your quarterback's getting sacked all these many times a game.
And we got a 35-year-old coming off of an Achilles injury, and Kirk Cousins is by no means injury prone. This is the first injury of his career, but he isn't, Ben Roethlisberger. He's in terms of quarterbacks, he's a smaller guy. So yeah, I think priority number 1 is let's keep our aging quarterback clean in the pocket. You're absolutely right there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, one last thing I wanted, and you speak about Joe Alt, so I just wanted to leave this on this. I saw a mock draft from The Athletic, and it's from The Athletic's beat staff, and they had Joe Alt falling to the Falcons, and the Falcons traded out of the pick, and it's not that I'm mad about them trading out of the pick, it's the fact that they traded out of the pick with the New Orleans Saints. I have to tell you, Miles, and you can answer, that has to be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. If Terry Fontenot does that, he should be fired on the spot. You're not going to sit here and trade with your division rival. I don't care if you and Mickey Loomis are best buddies. This isn't the best friends club. Like, you can go take him out for a steak dinner and $1,000 bottle of wine sometime else. We're not trading with our arch rivals, our division rivals, to give them a franchise left tackle when that's a position of desperation. If anything, we would trade less. We would get less from another team just to make sure the Saints don't get him. I cannot believe that was actually put in a mock draft.
Yeah, I think that's more of a national. Again, I will never say never to anything. You always, don't want to put.
I will.
Past
don't
anybody,
worry. I will.
At the same time, I will agree with you on that. I think just the pure optics of it, I think, is something that Terry and all those other guys recognize.
I think it's more about optics than
Arthur
anything.
Blank,
like
I think,
said.
would veto that. Like, I don't think Arthur Blank would allow that. I'm sorry. Like, like Arthur Blank is not a person. Like, I think he is trying to be as hands off as he possibly can.
I agree.
I do think he's trying, but there are certain things. There are certain things where he would just simply not allow, and I think that would be one of them. I mean,
I think you
I
can
would go
add
into a frenzy.
You
I'd be
can
a
add
shark in the water.
quarterback to that. I think that if Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris wanted to take Michael Penix with the 8th pick, I really do truly believe that Arthur Blank would step in and be like, guys, no, what are we doing? I just forked over $100 million out of my bank account, which is a drop in the bucket to Blank, but still, he's like, no. Like, what do you got? You guys just told me Cousins was the answer. No. Get Roma Dunze. That's what I think.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, there's two things that I don't think are going to happen in this trade. And I can say confidently.
Saints trade and a quarterback.
Yeah, I can be stupid and mess up. Like, it's not like anyone's going to come back and tell me, hey, bad boy. I hope someone does,
Yeah.
but I can be stupid and say that. I think those are two things I can confidently say will not happen. Miles, thanks so much for joining us again. We really appreciate having you on.